I think let's start now. Thank you for Anas bhai joining this session. And as many of you know that we are running this abroad education series. This series is largely intended to help our students who are, you know, uh, willing to go abroad. They aspire that they should get admission into abroad university. So there are multiple aspects of this abroad education process. One of which is basically IELTS. Last session we had this SOP session. SOP session was, uh, basically delivered by Sumit Samos, who is studying PhD at University of Pennsylvania. It's so difficult, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So today's session is going to be delivered by Anas Khan, and he is doing basically his MSc in computing, which is a big name of his course is something called artificial intelligence and machine learning something. So he's doing that, and he holds a Chevening scholarship. He's part of our cohort. So I'm also Chevening scholar. He is also Chevening scholar. He's studying his course at Imperial College London, which is also is according to QS it is second ranked college in the world. So which is very nice to have Anas Bhai with us. He'll be delivering the session on IELTS. Basically he'll be talking about his experience, also like what are the basics of IELTS, what one should keep in mind. So this session will go for next 30-35 minutes, and then we can have this question answer session. So thank you again for Anas Bhai, and all those who are joining this session, please keep taking notes, and also please sit somewhere where you get good network, and also ensure that you are mute throughout the session. Only if you have question in question hour, so you can write or ask your question, you can raise your hand. Thank you, and over to you, Anas Bhai.
Yeah. Thanks, Prashant, and thanks for the initiative you're taking to share this information because we all come. Like I was there, I was in this kind of a session multiple times when I applied it. I didn't know how to go about it. It's a natural process for everyone. So everyone has been through that, and it takes the same dedication what you're doing. So the fact that all of you are here in itself that proves that your intention is in the right place and you're putting the effort. So you should be happy about that. So you have already taken the first step. So there now I'll just share my screen and talk about just the IELTS aspect. So we can get into the different. I'm happy that you have had a SOP. So that in itself is a great achievement. But this IELTS is kind of like a barrier, is a barrier for us, especially for Indian students, because in other countries there's not a requirement, but unfortunately, Indians, we have this requirement to prove our English academic uh, credential, and this is the only way to go about it in in UK, sorry. So in US, you have other like TOEFL, a similar exam which goes through that. Just with the raise of hands, how many of you have heard about this exam? Like you can just use the raise hand in your meeting. Just want to see how many of you already are aware, or just type in the chat like yes, I know. Okay, I see here Shani for before any more people who know about this exam or heard about it. Okay, cool. Is there anyone amongst you who has maybe taken the exam? Okay, Chandra, okay, you have taken the exam. That's nice to know. At least someone has. Um, and if you is there anyone who has taken and wants to improve their score? Is there someone like that here? So I can get an idea of what to expect. Mm, okay, no worries. At least someone has taken and you have not. I'll give you an analysis and overview. I'll not go in depth and how and what kind of questions we can practice because practice session is a very different aspect. I'll give you an overview so that you know where to start from. This exam is basically used in UK, so all the master students, even undergrads and PhD, everyone has to take it. Um, it focuses on four sections. The scoring part is also important, which you need to understand and where you need to go. So let's go into this aspect that if you are taking, I'm here going to focus. There are two aspects of these exams. One is general and academic. but we are going to focus on academic because my assumption is that all the audience here is targeting academic opportunity here, whether it's in a postgrad or a PhD or not in immigration. Because if you're looking for an immigration, they will ask you to take a different exam, which is the general variant of this. In all these exams, like in this exam, you just need to ensure one thing: your conversational English, your daily English is what's required. So it's a language which you have been using for quite some time. So if you're reading, if you and the challenge comes especially when you are from other mediums of school, it becomes challenging. So as going forward, you don't need to have a specific preparation for it. If you intend to be in UK, your English should be of that par that you should be able to sit in the classroom. The very fact the classroom requires that caliber, they just want to check that. Like if you sitting in that classroom, will you be able to comprehend the information? Will you be able to generate your ideas? Will you be able to transfer those ideas? So this is what they're looking for. So it does not have to be the highest score if you receive in this exam. You just need to take care of a barrier. So you can go through all the like the general text. If you have a good reading habit, it's great. You are already, trust me, in a great shape. But if you don't have a great reading habit, try start developing it, because this will also not ensure the IELTS, but it will also ensure that when it comes to writing in class, that also helps. But I'll keep my focus with respect to this exam score. So writing here also demands. So there are four aspects of IELTS: is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. I'll talk about each individually as well, but I'll give you an overview right now. That writing demands a few analytical building skills. So you should be able to, in the academic aspect, you should be able to read reports, you should be able to read graphs, these aspects. So you should know like what is a pie chart, what is a bar chart. These these aspects are important. So that's what differentiates the academic variant versus the general variant. And examiners are assessing on the command of the language. By this, what we mean is that you don't have to be the expert in the class. It doesn't matter how much you got in your English in class 10th or in your class 12th, whether you got 80 or 90, that does not differentiate anything. It's just about whether you are able to communicate your ideas clearly. That's what important. And the last important thing I want you to ensure is that before even you start for the exam and start looking into how you're going to prepare for it, you need to set a score. So I am assuming that since if no one is there from undergrad where the score is a little bit low, but in most aspects, if you get something around 7.0 to 7.5, you are in a very good condition to get through in all the barriers. So like the scoring is from 1 to 9. So if you get 7 or 7.5 across all aspects, you should be very good. So you don't have to aim for beyond 7.5, because most of the universities, any student who compares like 7.5 is eligible. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to score about 8, 8.5 or 9. So make sure that is your goal. And some, for example, if your university says 6 or 6.5 is all required, if that's the minimum bar, then even better. So make sure before you sit for the exam, you look into university and see what is their requirement. So if the requirement is 6, 7, 7.5. Once you know the requirement, then you can start working on it. Because if you don't look at the requirement, and it's going to be very difficult. That's the one challenge I have faced, and even other students face. So make sure you do that. Next on the glance is how the pattern, the format of the exam looks like. So of all these things, so listening is one aspect which I believe that we as Indian students are not exposed to a lot. But thanks to our friendly YouTube and other online streaming services, our listening has gradually improved a lot, because we as a nation, we have been exposed to a lot of English throughout. So this has proven to be a benefit. So my recommendation, but with respect to the exam, is that we have never taken a listening test before this. So even I had not ever taken a listening test, and how it feels is very different. So my recommendation would always be, on YouTube, you will find a lot of free resources, especially if you just type in listening exams for IELTS and practice that. you'll get a complete idea how it goes in that example. So and that is exactly how it's happened. So if you are able to understand the different accents and different manipulations and different pitches, you'll be very good. So within the listening exam, you have 30 minutes, and they give you a headphone, and you have four different recordings. So you hear them, but you have to be very sensitive of this point. They play the recording once, and while they're playing it, you have to read the question, see the question, and keep an attentive mind and solve it. So don't ever think like, even while I was taking my personal, that I was under the assumption they might play it again, but they do not do that. So that is where you need the most attentive mind. So make sure you take that into account when you're practicing, that you will not get a chance to rewind the sound, rewind the audio, and go back. So you have to be very attentive. So this will only come through practice, and this is something which cannot be which cannot be replicated unless you have practiced enough. So practice through the YouTube videos, which are very well done, and it will help you a lot. So this is 30 minutes of very attentive mode. Reading, I believe, is something which all of us have done throughout in different formats of exam. But if you're an avid reader already, this would be a breeze for you. But for those who do not have a regular reading habit, my recommendation is start reading. Start reading your newspaper, start reading your favorite book. It doesn't matter what caliber it is. Just start reading. Because once you start reading and you start analyzing, I think that itself prepares you. Yes, you can find sample questions for this exam, but most of these questions are usually articles from a newspaper or a magazine, or to some caliber. So you will find these the same caliber of writing across all these magazines. So you just start reading newspapers, anything that will help you prepare more than anything else. So do that, because and once you do the reading, you will have like 60 minutes, and you have like three long texts, and the questions are mostly something which you might have already tried. It's like true, false, match the headings, sentence completion. You know the words, so you need the ability to have the vocabulary as well. So the more you read, the more you understand that where you're missing points. So if you don't understand a particular word, you don't have to be alarmed. You can go and try to find like what is the best way to find the closest meaning to that word. So those kind of tricks helps you understand reading. We'll go more in detail later as well. And then comes the writing aspect. So writing here for academic is slightly different from the general. So as I said, that you should be able to read a graph. Those who have come from, I'm assuming, STEM background, might or even maths in middle class, then you read about different kind of graphs, and here it becomes very important. So if it's a bar graph, it's a pie chart, if it's a line chart, all these data points you should be able to read and synthesize the information in few lines and give them the summary. And that's very important, and that will only come with practice. Trust me, this is not something we do on a daily basis. Only few professions even do it. So practice is really important in this aspect. You should be able to understand the difference between different data points. You should know the correct terminology, like what is the maxima, what is the minima. If you use these things, it makes the writing more elevated. So that what differentiates the academician apart of you. And the second part, and that's the first essay, and the second writing is like an argumentative essay, and that's where the weightage is much more higher. In fact, you get 40 minutes, you get double the time, and you're expected to write 100 more words for this. And in this, they give you a prompt, and where you have to argue whether you completely agree, completely disagree, or do you have a different stance. My suggestion has always been in this, that whatever I have heard from different students is that you always try to argue completely in one extreme. You don't try to play in the middle, but you substantiate. You know how to write introduction, you know how to write your argument, then you know how to write the positive points, and sometimes you try to also make the point that what makes your argument strong. So this argumentative way of writing can only come across again by practice. You will find sample questions, a lot of them across the internet. It's available, but make into the consideration that you try to make this academic essay completely blank. So don't look at anything, don't go to Google, don't do any searches. Just write it based on your own knowledge and then start creating it. Ask your friend to help read your essay, ask your parents to read yours, ask your siblings to read your essay, and tell me how much would you score. Do you think this is good enough? That's all you need to do. And finally, I think the speaking part, which I want to share, is that speaking test is also something I believe we as Indians we have not been exposed to. We hardly we speak, but we don't get tested. I don't think in our academic format we have ever had a speaking test. So that's something new and which we are not prepared for. So that's my personal suggestion that you need to start speaking with friends. And speaking is not an interview. I'll say it's more of like a conversation. So there are three parts to it. For the first part is you they'll give you a familiar topic and they'll ask you to talk about it. And the second, they will ask you, give you a longer monologue speech. And then the third, they will ask you cross question. It's like having a conversation. So it's the most important thing is that you just be relaxed and communicate the ideas inside your brain. You have all the information. You just need to articulate it in the right manner. That's all you have to do with here, in the speaking part. The next thing I want everyone to focus on the scoring because that's where things get difficult. Because the scoring is 1 to 9. So for now, I want to show you from like everyone gets 6 and 6.5 is like the minimum band you need to get into any university. If you're below that, you will not be able to be eligible for any of the university. But I'm assuming because since it's a master's cohort, I'm assuming that something around 7 to 7.5 is the perfect benchmark and you will be good. So you need to understand and read that what is the difference between a 6 and a 7 and what is the difference between 7 and an 8. And that will help you. So for example, the half band are there. So for you have, let's say, someone who's able to articulate their ideas with few mistakes is considered good. Someone who is able to articulate and also make an argumentative, which is very strong with very less mistakes, is considered very good. And someone who does it without any hitch is a 9 expert. So the expectation from universities is that you're able to communicate your ideas. You might have few mistakes, that's perfectly fine. So you don't have to be pitch perfect. Mistakes are perfectly acceptable. So you have to make sure that you are in that 7 bracket. You should be able to read, you should be able to write and communicate all your ideas. And if there are a few mistakes, it's perfectly fine. So don't worry about it. And the one thing I just want to highlight is that IELTS score is valid for 2 years. So once you take it, it will be valid for 2 years. So make sure that you give your best attempt and because that score will be with you for 2 years and you won't be able to change it. So I think that's something you should keep in mind. And if you are not able to apply within the validity of 2, you will have to take the exam again. So sometimes what people do is that, for example, if someone is applying for next academic year, they take IELTS very early so that they are done with it and it's still available for them to apply. But on some cases, that's where it's a stress-free time. But in most of the cases, we keep it till the last, which makes it difficult. That's a personal choice. So if you are somebody who wants to be stress-free, my recommendation is that you can take the exam 6 months earlier because it will still be eligible for two academic years. So you'll be fine. So do that. You can do this and get done, because if let's say you take it and your marks is not up to the eligible criteria, you can retake that exam. But what happens is that even you can apply for university without IELTS and they will say you might get an admission, but they will ask you that your condition is that you need to get this specific bracket of score, let's say 7, to be eligible for a full for the complete admission letter. And for that, what the students do is they start taking at the last moment. And sometimes when the score is not met in the right criteria, they again take it and it becomes a very stressful cycle. My suggestion is try to get this done early. Once you get this early, you won't have to worry about anything. So you can have an unconditional offer in the future. So that's the scoring part. Let's talk about specific sections in a little bit depth. So if you look at listening, it's just 30 minutes. It sounds so quick, like it happens. They play you. The first recording is about an everyday conversation, and the one thing I want you to take a note of is the accent. So it's not just our accent, it will not be British accent, it could be Australian, it could be New Zealand, it could be Scottish. And some of the accents are slightly heavier and it's difficult for us. Although we are quite exposed to, let's say, thanks to Hollywood, we're exposed to American accents a lot, but there are few accents which you are not exposed to. So it could be an accent from any Commonwealth country. So you need to expose yourself to different kind of sounds and accents. So that can be done through the YouTube as was suggested. So in the first section, you will hear a conversation between two people, and you try to fill in the blanks. Something in that it can change as well, but that's the usual pattern which all of us have faced. Um, Always try to read the question first before you start listening to it, because that helps you prepare what to look forward to. So it could be a question about fill in the blanks that someone said something, and once you read it, you know what you're listening to, and that will help. One other thing which I think comes from experience is that when I was taking exams, I realized that all the answers are always in order. So if, for example, if you have done the first question and you don't have to look for the second or third, you just wait for your second answer, because all the answers comes in order, so you don't have to remember what was said or what will come in future. You read the question, you'll be prepared for it. Sometimes they do a smart thing that they use some kind of synonym, so keep that also in your mind. Like they could use a word of similar meaning and they might trick you on that, so you keep that also aspect. The fourth thing is that all the questions, they mention that what is the word limit. So if you are supposed to fill one word or you have to fill two words, they will mention you. So you don't have to worry, okay, how many words do I need to fill? All the information will be available there, but you have to also make sure that if the fill in the blank said answer with one word or answer with two words and you start writing three, they will not even look at the first two words, they will mark you zero. So you have to be ensured that you follow the correct tips which are provided to you. And one thing which I learned also is that the hyphenated words are considered. The hyphenated words are considered one word. So keep that also in mind. Just to cover this, the first section will be of everyday conversation, if I can remember. Yeah, and the second is a monologue. If someone is giving a speech and you fill in the blanks, that's again. A third is more of educational dialogue. It's so someone is talking about their research or someone is talking about a particular scientific topic. That could be, and then the fourth again. So it also goes, the difficulty order also keeps on increasing with every section. So don't worry if you miss something. It's important is to forget, like, let's say, for example, you're listening to it and you completely miss something and you don't remember. It's okay. You have to then be aware and start focusing on the next question, because you don't want to be in a slump like, oh, you missed something and then you're not able to focus on the rest of it. It's okay, because I remember that when I was taking an exam, I had missed, let's say, the first few seconds and I couldn't understand it because I was trying to get the volume right and stuff like that. That can also happen. So you make sure those things are working, but you cannot start taking the pressure or you miss something and everything will go by. Start focusing on what's the next question coming up, so you'll be fine. So this is something which can be covered through YouTube. You will find a lot of resources which I'll share as well later, and through the SRC we can share more resources for you to practice later on. But this is something which you need to keep in mind. Listening is something which we are not exposed to, so we need to practice. If you practice, you'll be perfectly fine. I believe everyone has the ability. You just need to practice once. Let's talk about reading. Reading is something which we have been doing for quite some time. I think everyone who uh, has had like exposed to any form of reading, it could be in your own language. The pattern remains the same. So you read a passage, you try to answer it. That's the pattern has always but in English, you just need to be exposed to the English content. That's all is the requirement. So you have three long tests, and you don't have to be a specialist in anything. You don't need to be like, oh, I need to be a biology person to understand that passage, or I need to be a historian to understand one passage. It's general information, so you should be able to understand it fine. um, First strategy: read the question first and then start reading the passage. Like, don't read it skimming. So skimming is like just going through the information very quickly, and then finding what you're looking for. If, let's say, the question is what is the name of this particular character or personality, you read the question and start looking at the passage. So that's one step which really helps in time management. So time is of an essence. So every strategy should be based on how you manage time. Then there are questions like true and false. Sometimes that is the statement given. Sometimes they try to trick you that it's not even given. So you try to take that into consider as well. For example, you could have a false that this text does not agree with the statement. Sometimes it's neither agrees or disagrees. So you need to be critically. You have to have a critical mindset. That's why important. It's important that we do critical thinking. You read something and you try to ask questions like, why is it given? What is the purpose of these? These things are really important. So when you read as a practice, try to be a very aware reader. You don't try to be a passive reader. Try to be a very active reader. That's important aspect. Yeah. Match heading is another question. So they give you a passage and they ask you to give heading for each of the paragraphs. So take that into an account. That something it looks easy, but it's not that straightforward for me personally, because when growing up, trying to matching these things, it's kind of I think comes with habit. And yeah, but you'll be fine with it, but you just need to understand the broad ideas of it. Mm, the second thing is, if someone, yeah, this is for computer version. So okay, yeah, IELTS academic can be in two parts. One is in a pen and paper format, which we are used to, and that's what I would suggest for you to take. But there could be situations when you want to take the computer version because you might be comfortable. And the other thing is that you get the results for the computer version much more quickly. So that's why a few students take that up, although there's no difference in the price almost. But if you are in case of urgency and you have to take the computer one, you can look into the IELTS. Like if you take it, they do allow Control C and Control V for the reading part, so you can look for transcription for spelling errors. And you should practice like keyboard navigation. Those are important for IELTS computer version. They do allow. And the last thing is that when you're reading, I have realized that sometimes you might have knowledge from your own. Let's say you're a biologist and you're reading a biology specific passage, and they might have written something which you do not agree with it or is factually incorrect. Don't get trapped into that. That is something can happen. Answers are always given within the realm of that text. You don't have to consider your own knowledge and answer that. So any knowledge which is there and you try to contradict it, oh no, if you think, oh no, I know what is the correct answer without even reading it, it's going to cost you marks. So try to always follow what is given. Everything is given in that passage. So the question types will be of multiple choice, true and false, matching the heading, matching information, and sentence completion. So this is something I think you can do with just practice of reading. Start reading your articles, start reading newspapers, start reading anything. Sometimes even in the news when it comes, don't read just the skimmed three paragraphs. Try to read the entire thing. Try to read the entire thing and ask yourself the question: did you really understood it? Was there any vocabulary which you find difficult? Try to find those things. Be an active reader. That's my recommendation. Now come the writing part. That's important. For writing, so academic writing is something which is different from any general writing. So I want you to take into consideration that when it is more of two tasks. So the first task is small, but I want to highlight this aspect very important, is that in the 60 minutes, the task you are supposed, it's up to you how you spend the 60 minutes. So you can, my general recommendation has been that you spend 20 minutes on task one, and task two you spend 40 minutes. Why? Because task two is, according to IELTS, gives you a very higher weightage for score because you are supposed to write more. So always my consideration would be that you can, if you can spend 40 minutes on this, which will give you more score, is better than spending more time on the task one. And task one is mostly 150 words, and what you have to do is you have to report. It's not about writing; it's about reporting. So you will see a graph, which is like a chart of any kind. It could be of a bar graph, line graph, all these graphs, and you have to report them. What what does the data indicate? And I here would like to give you a format what has helped me to score, and it might help you as well. So you start with something like an overview. Do you see a general going up trend or going down trend? So you write that, okay, the most significant trend I see is, using these terminologies are also important. Like, what is a trend? What is upward? What is reward? What is going downward? So if you use these key terminologies, that helps reporting easier. The other thing is you try not to describe every data. You chose the most striking, like you talk about the most peak or the lowest point. So you don't try talk about every data, but try to do the most striking things. What are the highest, lowest comparison, and show like, okay, the cost in last year versus the cost in coming year will be a difference of 20%. So these are the things you want to make the analysis. Never copy the access labels. Yeah, that's all. They will have information. Okay, this is the year, this is the country name or the institution name. Always try to paraphrase it. The more you paraphrase it, that will allow the reader to understand that you, as a candidate who's taking the exam, is able to communicate ideas and communicate the the terminology in your own words, and that's very important. I think if you just copy the exact same thing given the question, that will show that you don't have the ingenuity to create things on your own. So that's something you should do. Lastly, no matter what happens, do not try to bring your personal opinion in this aspect. Don't be like, oh, based on this graph, the country, this country is not performing well because of this reason. Don't try to bring your person. Always follow what is there in the data. Never try to go beyond, the the objective of this question, the objective of the first question is summarize and report. That's it. You don't have to add anything more. You summarize what is given and you report what was given. That's task 120 minutes, and you should not spend more than any 1 minute and 20 minutes. So just be done with this. Now comes the writing task two. So this is where the weightage is very high, and this is where you will spend 40 minutes of your time. So what you do here is you will be given a prompt. You will be given a prompt where you have to argue about something. So it will be about discussing, it will be suggesting solution, to what extent. So try to understand what they're looking for. It could be of different types. So if say it's discuss, you look into the discuss capacity. If you look to what extent you understand, or to what degree am I supposed to agree with it. If you're suggesting solution, then you have to start making a mind map. Okay, what kind of solutions I need to devise for this problem. So these things you need to start preparing, because if you miss this aspect, you will be marked very low, below 5. So you need to start strong. You need to understand what's given. Next, I have always tried to structure it. My recommendation have always, which I have found even in preparation guides, you try to structure the information. You have an introduction, which is your thesis. For example, if you completely agree, if that is your stance, if you, to what extent do you agree, you mention that. Then why do you agree? Then you start writing your body paragraphs. Like you give, let's say you have 3 different ideas why you agree that we should have better security for our internet. How can we improve that? If that's the idea, so you start giving solutions. You give one idea for each. You explain that idea. You give example. Once you're done with that, then you try to conclude again based on this information given. It is quite suited that this idea, that the stance you are agreeing with, is aligned with you. If you disagree, both try to follow a structure. If you don't follow a structure, if you go haywire, they will not be able to give you good marks. Make sure structure is followed. Another thing which I have felt is that, especially in the second part of the essay, is that you keep your ideas, give depth to them. If you try to be very broad, and if you do not give examples, do not give them why you agree with this idea, you will not be scored good, because it's always that. Let's say if you even have, there could be some topics which you might not be aware of, and you might have like one or two ideas. It's important that those two ideas you reason well. You give them, okay, this is the understanding. This is where your idea came from. Why do you think your idea is important? Why is your solution the best? Once you give them the depth, and the reader will be able to understand through your essay. Oh, this candidate understand what he or she is talking about. They know how to argue the idea. They will be created in classroom capacity, because that's what you do in classroom as well. You should be able to articulate your ideas. If you're able to do it here, then it showcases that you'll be able to do it in classroom. So that's very important. Now, sorry. So if you're taking the computer aspect, the computer exam, if you're writing on that, the word count will be there. So always make sure you write that you're not less than 250 words. I have seen students, yeah, it becomes quite challenging where students are not able to write. Let's say you are expected to write 300 words, something 350 words, and you are not even able to fill 200 words. If you write less, no matter how good your ideas are, you will not be scored highly. So start practicing. So if you feel like you're good at typing, and you want to take the computer exam, start practicing while typing, because pen and paper writing is very different from how you feel in writing using computer, like on a keyboard. So choose where you want to write and start practicing. So again, just to give you what the types of essay would you have to either agree, disagree, you have to discuss, you have to give problem solution, advantage, disadvantages of these ideas. It could be, oh, the environment policy. It could be like, do you agree with the current environment policy, or do you agree with the climate change? Give options, give your solutions. So it could be of any format, any topic. So but it will be general enough that you understand. So that's writing. Now comes this. Yeah, let's talk about the speaking, because that's something which I feel is misjudged, especially for us. Is that what happens is that we think it's an interview, but I feel it's more of a conversation. Imagine you're going to speak to your friend about your day to day, and it just happens to be recorded. That's it. That's the only aspect I want you to imagine. So the first part is, and usually into the speaking test does not happen along with listening, reading, and writing. It usually happens either one day early or one day late. So you will not, so you will have entirety of this time just for speaking. So don't have to worry about it. It's going to happen on the same day. So the first part is just an introduction of, they will ask you two to three questions. The interviewer will ask you two, three questions, and they will ask you like your name, where you're from, stuff. You don't have to. Uh, so this time you can just be just explicit and answer the question in a few minutes. That's it. The second part is where they will give you a card, and the card will have bullet points. They will ask, and then they'll give you a preparation time of, let's say, 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to speak. So you take that card, you look into that, what they're expecting, and you start making a plan how you made for an essay. What are you going to answer? What is going to be articulated? What is your stance? Or something. And it's going to be very simple as something as, oh, what was the most striking advertisement you have seen? Or what is your favorite movie? Or it could be a favorite series. It could be a favorite book. It could be anything. So you have to give them a 2 minute monologue speech. It might seem short right now, but trust me, when you're speaking for 2 minutes, it becomes very daunting. Now, I want you to practice this in a mirror first with yourself. You take a jumble. You can ask on the internet, you will get what are the speaking test looks like, and take a card of that question and try to see if you can do it, and record yourself. Record yourself and then listen to yourself back. Like, where did you go wrong? So once you start doing that for yourself, you'll learn it. And once you feel comfortable doing it with yourself, start doing it with your siblings, start doing it with your friends, and they will give you answer how to structure it. That's one thing. And the last is, once you're done with your own monologue, they ask you a few questions on the same thing. They'll ask you try to give opinions, or to try to argue, and this is like a 4 to 5 minute conversation where you have to defend your ideas And it's more of a conversation. You don't have to be worried, oh, my accent is bad. Your accent is not going to be penalized. We have an Indian accent, trust me, that's fine. We might not realize it, but once we come out of our own nation, we realize that we have an Indian accent. Someone coming from Scotland might have a Scottish accent. Someone coming from Australia might have an Australian accent. They all speak English, but we have a different aspect. It might sound different. So you don't have to worry, oh, I don't have the correct pronunciation. That is a problem in India, which we have, but that's not what they're looking for. That's not a problem in itself. You need to, all you need to do is just make sure that your ideas, which you are trying to describe, can be communicated. So a well articulated view which you hold does not score better when you are hesitant. So try not to be hesitant. Just be clear and sharp. That's all is expected of these kind of information. Mm, and yeah, so what they are actually looking for in every task, they are looking for like how have you addressed all the parts of the question? Is your position clear? Have you fully developed your ideas? These things are what important. And the second thing is coherence and cohesion. So this is something which I was not even aware before I was taking this exam. Like, what is coherence and cohesion? Coherence is the idea of like how well you organized your ideas. Does it make logical sense? Sometimes people say something doesn't even make any sense and just say blurt out words. That will not happen. You cannot be something. Oh, I have said few words, even though it doesn't mean anything. You have to be very clear. Okay, this actually aligns with what you're saying. And apart from that, how well all these ideas link together, and that's cohesion. Like how well they are structured. Like, does it work like a moving machine? Like if you have to build about climate change, okay, you talk about not just the rise in temperature, you also talk about the eating habits or the economical output. So all these ideas come together, then they substantiate your stance on climate change. So that would be your cohesion. So these two things are very important. You need to start looking into them because I was not aware about this when I was looking at the exam. I learned about it as I practiced. The last important, second last thing important is the lexical resource. So how well is your vocabulary range and how accurate it is? If you sometimes, for example, if you're writing and you use some less known or common items, it would allow you more score. I can assure you that. So try to have a balance of simple English plus trying to use something which you have not used or not commonly used, and you add it. So it could be in the form of it could be like using words like agendas or words using like it could be summarization, it could be gender specific words. All these terminologies, if you use, that shows that you have a great range of vocabulary, and that will help you a lot. And lastly, your grammatical range. So you don't want to just writing simple words. Sometimes use conjunctions, sometimes use adjectives. Try to make bigger sentences, smaller sentences, but make sure those are error-free. The more you try to be diverse in the range of how you write, the more command is exuded when the candidate is reading your. So when the assessor is reading your essay and they see that you have a range of sentences, you have a range of ways of communicating ideas, that shows your command, and that's what they're looking for. And one thing I want to make sure is that if you're aiming for a 7, you have to ensure that your sentences are error free. They cannot have or has grammar mistakes. They cannot have plural or singular mistakes. They cannot have conjunctions and adjective mistakes. They cannot have adverbs and verbs mistakes. So that's important. And if you can use less used vocabulary, you are very good. Like you don't have to worry about it. You'll be perfectly fine. Mm, yeah, and the last thing I want to give you, like if you're prepared, is just to conclude, start with the score, think what score you need. So for example, in every aspect, by the way, you don't get just an overall score. You have a over score of 7. You also want to think what score do you need in writing, what score do you need in reading, speaking, and listening. So make sure you qualify for all of it so you don't have to worry about it. My suggestion is take this exam early, be done with it so that you know you are eligible for all the programs to come. So today, if you have time or tomorrow, look at the university website which you want or the program and see what score they do need. After that, try to do a mock exam on your own. It's available on YouTube. You can do a listening exam, and they will give you answers also to grade. So do a listening exam, do a do a reading exam, do a speaking exam, and just check yourself how well you are. So so for example, if you take the exam and you are at 6 and you know the requirement is 7, then you know what changes you need to do. And this exam will just take you like less than 2 hours. That's all you need. So you don't have to worry spending a lot of time. The next thing is once you take the exam and you know where is your weaknesses. For in my case, my personal weakness was listening. I knew I was doing all right in other aspects, but the listening was something which was not great with me. So I had to practice a lot through YouTube videos to prepare myself. So that's something you can look into the aspect. See, for your case, it could be writing or it could be reading. So you can work on those areas to do this first. Has helped me a lot, and if I was in your position, I would follow this. And yeah, and most important is try to use English in your daily life. Just read, write, talk. You don't have to worry about, oh, my accent is bad, or my pronunciation is bad, or my handwriting is bad. Those things are fine. Those things you don't have to, and you don't have to score 80 out of 80 or 100 out of 100 in these exams. All you have to do is that whatever you're reading, writing, and you're able to communicate your daily ideas, which you do in your home language, you're able to do in English. That's all. If you can tell someone, okay, this is how your address to your home from your closest landmark. Those things also, if you do it in English, you're perfectly fine. Daily English, and finally full-time simulation for the test day. That's something I would recommend. Take a full exam. If you're taking a computer exam, they give you a free exam to do, so do that as well. Uh, and a few last tips which I will give you is for the test day, arrive early. Make sure you're always carrying your passport. I have seen a lot of people who don't forget to carry their passport for the exam day, and it's a very expensive exam, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you carry those things. Um, ID is important. You don't have to worry. They provide you lockers. So if you bring something and you forget something, they can keep it stored. They won't allow you to carry it, but in the exam hall, but you can know for sure it will be there safe. During the exam, if you have any issue, audio issue, paper issue, or anything, their invigilators will be available to help because thankfully, although this is very expensive, there are people to help you. So make sure you ask for help. Don't sit quietly. Uh, and don't try to do anything which can get kicked you out. Use your time. It's a very timed exam, so use time very efficiently. Don't wander off. Always be focused, and that's all. And once everyone is done, then only you leave. You just follow the instruction. This is the few key points which I want to provide you. Is that if you're taking the computer exam and the results comes early, if you take paper-based exam, it takes 38 days. Otherwise, you can still ask for check if you want. If you feel like it's not appropriate and you might have done well, you can ask them to recheck the exam. But I think these days they ask for money. But if the score is changed, they return the money in some cases. So just keep a track of that. You get after the end of the exam, you get a test report form, which is what you submit to universities. So you can do that. It's valid for 2 years. So there's no limit on retakes or restrictions. So always make sure you do a check. But it's an expensive exam, so I don't want you to waste money on this. So you take the exam on the best day of when you're feeling prepared. So do that. I think, yeah, and that's how I'll end it. So I'll share a few more resources which I have mentioned here, and most of the resources are already available on YouTube, so you don't have to worry. There's plenty. You just write and you'll find it. And the most important thing is this test is just a measurement of your daily English. It's nothing more than that. It's not about scoring the highest marks. It's not about scoring the best marks. You're not ranked one, two, three. So it's all about you. And trust me, if you're just reading, listening on daily hours, you'll be fine. Yeah. So that's all for this session. And now I will be open to questions. So if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat or raise your hand and then you can unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was very detailed presentation, and I hope many of student must have found it very much helpful. Uh, so yeah, so that's it, and I would like to request you now. You can raise your hand and you can ask any question if you have. You can use English, Hindi medium, so there is no issue. If you find any difficulties in English as well, yeah.
Yeah, I am comfortable with English, Hindi, Urdu, whichever you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
यस, किसी कुछ सवाल है?
Hi, I'm Shweta. Am I audible?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned that there are two types of exams, right? Like we can also go for the written one and also we have the computer one. What was it about? Can you just elaborate a bit?
So, okay, if I heard your question correct, you can correct me later. I think the question is that there are two variants of the academic exam. You can take the pen and paper exam, so which was the older model, which still exists, but in some cases they have also trying this new model, which you take the same question, same exam in computer format. So you are given a screen, you go to a system, and you type your answers and use mouse to select the answer. That's computer. Other is the pen and paper where you get an OMR sheet where you have to circle the right option. So that's the other format. So whichever you feel comfortable, choose that. Because personally, we were growing up, we were doing pen and paper more, so that was how I was comfortable. So I did that. But if someone who wants the results early and the only way to do is computer exam, then you have to prepare for that aspect. So that is, yeah, that's all. Those are the two variants. I hope I have answered your question, Shweta.
Yeah, there's one more question.
Yeah.
You once mentioned that if there is a change in the score, you can also go back to uni or something. What was that about? I actually had a network issue, so I couldn't hear you.
Okay. So if you have taken the exam and if you feel the score they have provided you is not up to the mark, you can ask them for a re-verification. But the re-verification costs some kind of money. But if the score changes after re-verification, they will return the money. That's their policy. So yes, that is option for them. Okay.
So we have one question in chat by Shivanandan. If someone has not got good marks in UG but in PG have 7.2 or 7, so is that eligible for the exam?
So to answer your question, you do your marks from your undergrad does not carry any value here in this exam. This exam is a completely separate entity. Anyone can take this exam, no matter what is your score in your undergraduate. Just go and take this exam. This doesn't matter on your previous score, academic score. So this is a completely separate entity for the future universities you're applying to. Yeah.
Yes. Does anybody have any other question? Yeah. I guess nobody has any question. Thank you so much, Anas Bhai, for such a detailed presentation. And it was really for me also because I came from English medium, so I didn't had to attempt this IELTS. So I got admission without
No.
IELTS because I had certificate instruction and all that. So I never bothered about applying IELTS. But I would suggest everybody, like in any case, for example, language test is very important. You should definitely go for IELTS. But like in any case, you get conditional offer letter, but you did your masters in English medium, and recently, especially if you have done your masters in last 1 or 2 years, then sometimes universities accept as a your medium of instruction and your transcript has written that your medium was English, and you can pursue education in English. That can be really helpful. So you can also give that certificate so that universities sometimes accept that. For example, in my university and many other universities, I actually got the waiver of language, so that you can try at the last case, but you should definitely look for these IELTS and other exams. Thank you so much, and we'll be glad to have another session maybe on some other AI or something that we can
Yeah.
definitely talk about it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank
We'll
you.
definitely
Thank
try
you.
it.
Yeah.